There comes a time for many women when trying to conceive becomes something that they want to do. And this is a topic to me that I'm so passionate about because after having West, I never really realized that it was going to be challenging or harder for us to conceive. And the reality is that 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 women in the US has challenges with conceiving. And that can be anything from an ovulatory dysfunction to things like endometriosis to fragile eggs. There's so many reasons why it can be hard to conceive. And I think that we all start in high school thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get pregnant. I need to be on birth control. I don't want any chances. And for a lot of us, it seems to be harder than what the expectation when we were younger actually is. The reality is that even if you're doing everything completely correctly, you and your partner are having sex in the right window where you're ovulating and you don't have any hormonal imbalances, issues, you don't have any sort of issues with structural anatomy going on, you really only have a 33% chance of conceiving every single month. That is if everything is going right. And so think of how the odds go down if you do have low progesterone or PCOS or something that's getting in your way. And so today I really want to talk about how we can boost fertility, tips for boosting fertility and conception, and why your hormones are so important when it comes to your chances at being able to conceive and your future fertility. So the first thing you want to think about is that it takes 90 days or 3 months for an egg to fully form. And so any dietary or lifestyle changes that you are making right now take 90 days to impact that egg. So the egg that's going to be produced in 3 months will be impacted by the dietary and lifestyle changes that you're making right now. So you want to remember that. And if you're trying to conceive, start now. If you know that in 3 to 6 months you want to try for a baby, start incorporating these changes now rather than waiting months and months down the line. The next thing that you want to be really aware of is, what does a healthy menstrual cycle look like? Is my menstrual cycle regular? Because that's what's supporting ovulation, and that's what's going to eventually help you figure out when you're ovulating so that you can conceive on the appropriate days. And so what does a healthy menstrual cycle look like? A healthy menstrual cycle should be somewhere between 24 to 35 days, in between that range. It depends on what your normal is. And so if you're jumping all over the place, you're 1 month, you're 23 days, the next day you're 37 days, the next day, the next month you're 43 days. That's not normal. What is normal is if every month you are consistently 26 days, and you hear people say a menstrual cycle should be 28 days. If you're every 26 days and then that's your normal, and there's a very good likelihood that every month you are ovulating. Most women with a 28-day cycle are ovulating on day 14 of that cycle. So right halfway through that cycle, and through that ovulatory phase, they are beginning to produce progesterone, which is going to help them hold on to the pregnancy. And so if you have been, again, tested for ovulatory issues like PCOS, or you have low progesterone, even though you are ovulating, those are things that can impact your capacity to be able to, 1, get pregnant, and 2, stay pregnant. So knowing your cycle, knowing how regular you are, if you have low progesterone, you're likely to have a shorter cycle window or be spotting throughout your cycle. So knowing those things about your cycle, tracking them, and becoming really familiar with them is really important. So how many days a month can you actually get pregnant? What's the reality? People ask all the time, can I get pregnant on my period? The reality is no. Unless you're spotting and you think that that's your period, you really can't get pregnant on your period. And so what happens is you, again, typically for most women, ovulate on day 14. Oftentimes when I am giving advice to a client, I will tell them to start to get the ovulation sticks so that they know exactly what day of the month they are regularly ovulating on, and then to start having sex about 5 days before that ovulatory window every other day, because sperm can live in the vaginal canal for about 48 hours. And so if we are going every other day, you're going to get the most sperm. That way your partner is not losing out on quality sperm by having, you know, an orgasm every single day, but you are also getting in that tight window of when you are likely going to be ovulating. So sperm and egg can meet, you can conceive, and then implantation occurs about 5 days later. So now that you know what you need to know about how your menstrual cycle should look, what I want you to remember is that tracking it over time is really important to get data to understand when is the right time to conceive for you. So download some sort of an app, keep it in the notes section on your phone. I like to use the MyFlow app, but you can really use whatever feels best for you. And all you're gonna do is track your bleeding, the days of heaviness, how far apart your cycles are. You're gonna want to look at the cervical mucus that you're having throughout your non-bleeding days. Does it look watery? Does it look like egg whites? The more that it looks thicker and mucousy and almost like that egg white type consistency, typically that closer you are to that ovulation point, that cervical mucus is going to help the sperm get up to meet your egg. And so tracking that, and you can also track your basal body temperature every morning. When you see a spike about a degree, you can look and say, okay, I'm probably ovulating right now, and you can use that if you don't want to buy the ovulation strips. And looking at that data again over the course of a few months is going to show you what the best window is for you. And if you're somebody who is like, oh my gosh, all 3 of these last months have been irregular, that's a window of opportunity for you to then go and look at some different lab testing. What is your estrogen to progesterone ratio? What does your FSH level look like? What does your AMH level look like? Those are the quality and quantity of your eggs. Your progesterone again is going to show you, do you have the capacity to hold this pregnancy through the first trimester before your placenta is actually fully engaged? So there are a number of different tests that you can look into if things look irregular, but that's a really great place to start. From there, like I said, 90 days before you actually conceive, you really want to start incorporating those dietary and lifestyle changes. So a really big one is looking at eating lots of more real whole food and a good amount of protein and fat, because your hormones are built off of that protein and the fat. Hormones are made from cholesterol and amino acids, and so you really want to think about incorporating a good amount of that. You definitely do not want to be on a diet, restricting in any way, undernourishing yourself, or over exercising when you are trying to conceive. The body thinks of that as a stressor, and the body will shut down ovulation in order to deal with the stressor if you are consistently under-eating and over-exercising. You really want to make sure that you are thinking about limiting the amount of alcohol and caffeine that you are drinking, because both of those things act as stressors on your body as well. Caffeine gonna jack up your adrenal hormones, and alcohol is a toxin, so it's harder for your liver to process out. And so you really want your body to be working optimally, to be functioning optimally, to feel like it is in a really good place, so conception becomes this really easy thing. You want to be definitely getting enough water every single day so that your body is hydrated. You want to make sure that you are managing your stress levels, sleeping enough. All of those things can make it harder for you to conceive. If you're not sleeping, if you're drinking too much coffee, if you are super stressed out, again, the body sees all of these things as stressors, and so it may not ovulate, it may not look at this as a very good time for conception, because your body wants to feel safe that you are capable of holding a baby and being able to carry a baby to term when that implantation does occur. So you really want to make sure you're thinking about all of those things, and you're treating your body almost as if you were already pregnant, right? And so when we think about supplements, there are a few things that are really important. One is you want to make sure you're taking a really good quality prenatal. I really like the ones from Sakara, but there are a few really good ones out there on the market, making sure that it has methylated folate, not folic acid, methylated folate, because that means that the folic acid is already methylated for you. And if you have the MTHFR genetic mutation, which I do, 40% of the population does, you can't methylate that folic acid, and it actually becomes problematic for you and the baby rather than helpful. So look for a brand that has methylated folate. Look for a brand that has choline. Look for a brand that ideally has an omega packed into it, which is the one that from Sakara already does. Otherwise, you can take an additional omega on top of this that helps your body lower levels of inflammation, which makes conception easier. You might want to start taking Vitex if your progesterone is low. If you have low progesterone, even if you have low progesterone because you have PCOS, Vitex is a really great herb to help to increase levels of progesterone and to prompt the body to produce more of it on its own. You might want to take some magnesium to help relax the body, relax the muscles, relax the mind, so that you feel more calm going into this cycle of getting pregnant. And then the last thing that you can start taking is maca. Maca is a really great adaptogenic herb that is wonderful for the reproductive system and can help bring the body back into balance if you're dealing and struggling with hormonal imbalances. So all of these herbs are really great, but remember, they're really just the cherry on top of the sundae of you having a really good diet. I say focus on the 80-20 rule, really incorporate mostly 80% of the time real whole food. Of course, it's okay every once in a while to give yourself that treat, that indulgence, but for the most part, you really want to be eating real whole food, limiting caffeine and alcohol, moving your body 3 to 4 times a week, but not moving it in a way that's like so intense that your body again sees it as a stressor. So try to limit the high intensity interval training, try to limit the marathon running. Those things aren't going to serve you when you're trying to conceive, especially if you're already knowing that it's been a little bit of an uphill battle for you. So I hope that these things are helpful. My biggest tip is to go get tested, look into your hormones and see what's going on there, because there's so many different things that could be preventing you from being able to conceive. There's this wide range of things that's causing this issue for 1 in 6 women to have trouble conceiving. And so my recommendation is to test, understand what's going on with you rather than continuing to shoot in the dark. And we can absolutely help with that here. If you want to get your labs done, come over to us at Wellness by Kelly and we will help you figure out a plan and a protocol that is right for you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that this gave you some tips about lifestyle, nutrition, supplements that you can take to help boost your fertility and conception. And if you like this, subscribe and like our page, and I will see you in the next video.